What do you do when a conflict becomes completely inevitable? When all the pieces are moving, the diplomatic options have failed, and the storm is about to break. Sun Tzu says don't panic, and don't rush blindly forward. You secure the ultimate vantage point. You position yourself at the exact right place, at the exact right time, and in a state of total defense. And you wait for the enemy's momentum to create their own destruction. But positioning isn't just about grabbing a high hill. Sun Tzu outlines a precise, five-step scientific method to control success. Measurement, estimation, calculation, balancing of choices, and finally, victory. To understand how a modern commander uses this rigorous math to survive an overwhelming onslaught, we have to look at the critical, desperate defense of Kyiv in the opening weeks of February 2022. Let's break down the mathematical ladder Sun Tzu lays out. He says, measurement owes its existence to Earth. In the weeks before the invasion, Ukrainian planners executed step 1, measurement. They mapped the physical Earth, the narrow choke points, the swamps around Pripyat, and the single highways leading from Belarus to Kyiv. Next came step 2, estimation of quantity. They estimated the sheer mass of Russian armor heading down these roads. Step 3, calculation. They calculated how much anti-tank weaponry, artillery, and manpower would be required to grind that mass to a halt. Step 4, balancing of chances. They weighed the risks. They knew they couldn't fight Russia in a flat, open field. The math wouldn't work. So they balanced their chances by choosing to fight in a dense, muddy suburbs of Bucha, Irpin, and Hostomel. And only through that cold calculation did they unlock step 5, victory. Sun Tzu says that the consummate leader cultivates the moral law and strictly adheres to method and discipline. This is how you control success. Instead of scattering their forces thin along the entire border, Ukraine established a position of total defense around the capital. They blew up key bridges, mined the fields, and fortified urban entry points. They created an airtight perimeter. They didn't offer a single open gap. The Russian army, operating under poor discipline and flawed assumptions, advanced in a massive 40-mile-long armored convoy. Because Ukraine had positioned themselves perfectly in total defense, the Russian forces were channeled directly into a trap. They became a static, sitting target, choked along a single highway, unable to deploy into the surrounding swamps. Once the enemy's hostile movement is bottlenecked, and they are paralyzed by their own logistical chaos, that is when you transition. You strike hard and defeat them before they can reorganize into a real threat. From their secure defensive positions, Ukrainian mobile teams armed with shoulder-fired missiles and backed by precision artillery struck at the weakest points of the formation, the fuel trucks and the lead vehicles. They didn't fight a massive symmetrical battle. They snipped the nerves of the Russian vanguard. Within weeks, the entire northern offensive collapsed, and Russian forces were forced into a full retreat from Kyiv. They identified the hostile movement, positioned themselves where math would favor them, and struck the weakest point exactly as it formed. Sun Tzu's ultimate war tip reminds us that victory is a process of discipline, not luck. Map the terrain, measure the forces, calculate the risks, and lock down your position. Let the enemy rush towards your shield, and when their own momentum breaks their spine, that is when you draw the sword. To bring it all together, establishing a position of total defense isn't about hiding in fear. It is a highly scientific, deeply calculated act of preparation. Sun Tzu reminds us that victory isn't born from luck or raw aggression. It is born from method, geometry, and discipline. As we saw in the historic Battle for Kyiv, the Ukrainian High Command didn't win by guessing. They ran Sun Tzu's exact mathematical ladder. They measured the earth, estimated the enemy's mass, calculated the requirements, and balanced the chances. By choosing the exact time and place to lock down their defense, they transformed the enemy's overwhelming size from an advantage into a crushing logistical nightmare. When a conflict is entirely inevitable, and you must establish a position of total defense before you strike, execute these 3 steps. Run the math. Never skip the steps of preparation. Measure the environment, estimate the scope of the problem, and calculate exactly what it takes to break the oncoming momentum. Secure your anchor point. Find the physical, tactical, or political ground where the rules of the game favor you. Lock it down so tightly that the enemy has no choice but to channel themselves into your trap. Snip the nerves. Do not smash blindly against the enemy's strongest armor. Wait until their own movement exposes a structural weakness, and then strike that specific point with absolute finality before they can recover. Control your success by controlling your discipline. Build an unbreakable foundation. Let the enemy exhaust themselves against your position, and then deliver the deciding blow.